a mind-numbing 165.1 decibels. With a blast louder than a jet engine, the Beast makes boom car history, claiming the title of loudest car in the world. Believe it or not.
This is a trephine, an archaic medical tool used by doctors to drill a hole in the head of a patient. It was supposed to cure anything from a headache to hallucinations. Now, of course, it's unthinkable that this shocking procedure would still be performed today in the 21st century. Actually, think again. "47-year-old Betty Lyons of Layton, Utah, is moments away from willingly undergoing an ordeal that is truly unbelievable. She's come thousands of miles to this clinic in Mexico to have surgery so dangerous it's banned in the U.S. Betty is about to have a hole drilled into her head. And believe it or not, she'll be awake for every agonizing moment. Since she was 21 years old, Betty suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome and deep depression. Despite trying traditional treatments, nothing her doctors prescribed seemed to help Betty's condition. As a last desperate resort, Betty turned to a controversial and rarely performed procedure called trepanation. Modern trepanations are based on an ancient practice of removing a piece of bone from the skull. Evidence of these crude brain surgeries done thousands of years ago have been found all over the world.
The people practicing it really knew something about how far they could go through and how not to penetrate the brain.
As documented in this rare footage from Africa, those who perform trepanations believe that allowing more blood flow to the brain can cure everything from spirit possession to mental depression. Even with medically sanctioned procedures, drilling a hole in your head carries significant hazards.
The dangers are risking infection, uncontrolled bleeding from arteries, or scarring of the underlying brain itself if one advances into the brain tissue.
While these crude brain surgeries were thought to be a thing of the past, recently clinics around the world have been offering the disturbing procedure as a mental health miracle cure. Betty Lyons' lifelong depression has brought her to this clinic in Monterrey, Mexico, where a surgeon who received his doctorate from a medical school in the United States will perform the risky operation. Despite the danger, Betty signs the release. She's come too far to stop now. Clinic's workers start by injecting her scalp with only a local anesthetic. Unbelievably, Betty will be wide awake during the entire procedure. Next, as the incision is made, the skin is retracted and held by forceps. Then the drilling begins. Betty can only listen and hope that the drill doesn't go too far.
I could hear him doing something to the drill, and then he'd put it back in my head and it'd drill again. It felt like a dental drill.
Doctors continue with the delicate procedure, stopping within mere millimeters of hitting her brain. Finally, Betty's scalp is stitched up. Except for a thin layer of skin, she's left with a hole, roughly the diameter of a dime, permanently drilled in her head. Amazingly, just moments after surgery, Betty talks casually about the experience that could have ended her life.
I'd rather do that than go to the dentist. Oh, yeah.
Back at home, as the hole in her head covers over with scar tissue, Betty Lyons claims she's had no ill effects from the drilling, and the experience has changed her life for the better.
It's like a light came on in my life, and everything's happy, everything's positive, everything's full of joy.
But despite Betty's sunny outlook, when it comes to literally drilling a hole in your head, the medical experts that Ripley's consulted about trepanation couldn't disagree more.
There is no credible medical or scientific evidence that it is a better treatment than standard therapies. This surgery carries significant risk to the patient, to the person who undergoes it. We now have a saying, one needs that like a hole in your head. I mean, your viewers can judge for themselves how extreme this is.
Wow. Betty will now have to live the rest of her life with only a thin layer of skin covering the hole to her brain.
Still ahead, why this man insists on turning his face into an inferno. Plus, the secret fleet of birds keeping passenger flights safe from disaster. And he's wiped out so badly, he was nearly paralyzed for life. But that isn't stopping skateboarder Danny Way from taking a 4-story dive out of a chopper.
If I don't do it, I'm gonna look like a chicken.
His breathtaking attempt ahead on Ripley's. Unbelievable people doing unbelievable things. These men and women can perform these extraordinary acts because they have dedicated their lives to understanding all of the risks involved. So remember, never tempt fate and never attempt the unbelievable act you are about to witness. Don't do it. For centuries, India has been home to unique festivals and unusual traditions. But this entertainer takes it to extremes. Because when he puts on his act, he risks catching his face on fire. Since Rajendra Tiwara was a young man, he dreamed of finding a way to shock and amaze his friends. One day he realized he had the perfect trick growing right under his nose. First, Rajendra fireproofs himself, coating his face with ointment and twisting his hair into straws, providing a safe platform for the candles he inserts into his beard. Amazingly, Rajendra, who has never been seriously injured, has even pulled his own teeth, giving him more control over his facial muscles, so he can actually make the candles dance. Regularly thrilling crowds, he pushes his performance to its peak by keeping these burning flames fluttering only inches from his face. Now that's one hot act.
I'm standing inside the engine casing of a jumbo jet, almost 9 feet in diameter. And what's so unbelievable is that a single bird sucked into a turbine can cause engine failure and potential disaster. But at New York's JFK Airport, they have a very unusual secret weapon to keep this from happening.
Metal detectors, trained dogs, X-ray scanners. Despite all these sophisticated measures used to get planes safely in the air, security at one of the world's busiest airports has gone to the birds. Literally. Believe it or not, trained falcons are keeping the runway of New York's John F. Kennedy Airport safe for millions of airline passengers. It was 1975. A jumbo jet was forced down and caught fire during takeoff. Investigators found the cause. Birds from the runway had been sucked into the jet's engines.
The problem of birds at JFK is that they occasionally cross into the airspace, and then aircraft, they hit a bird in the air.
It's a little-known fact, but these bird-related accidents are common at airports. Injuries, deaths, and millions of dollars of damage have been attributed to the problem. Authorities at JFK have tried everything to get their birds to leave.
Propane cannons, which produce a loud banging noise. Pyrotechnics, which are fired from a starter pistol.
Unfortunately, these city birds grow accustomed to the noise and aren't easily scared off. So to deal with the problem, the authorities at JFK turned to nature and the ancient sport of falconry, a practice where these birds of prey are trained to hunt other birds on command. The result? A fleet of security falcons, on alert all year round. Stuart Rosell, one of 6 falconers employed at JFK, is the manager of the falconry unit.
I've been a professional falconer for 15 years.
Every hour, a falcon is sent out on patrol.
If you're a starling or a crow or one of the smaller species of gull, then you grow up instinctively afraid of a falcon.
In this case, some stubborn geese in a nearby pond refuse to be intimidated. Stewart decides these hardened customers are a job for his star falcon, Lucky.
Lucky's probably my favourite bird. When he flies properly, he's the most dramatic.
The falcons are trained to respond to Stewart's lure. Once they see the lure, they go into attack mode. Any birds in the area quickly depart. In fact, JFK's Falcon program has been so successful that the airport hasn't had a serious bird strike-related incident in over 25 years. For Stewart, working with falcons is a labor of love, and he takes satisfaction knowing that his birds are helping to make JFK Airport one of the safest in the world.
It really is a way of life for all of us. We're very passionate about it. I know if I had a pair of wings and I could fly, I'd be out there flying all the time.
Now, speaking of flying, Danny Way wanted to make a name for himself in the competitive world of skateboarding. When he decided to go for a big air record, he grabbed his board, his helmet, and a helicopter.
In just a moment, daredevil Danny Way will attempt a feat no one has ever tried. The most outrageous stunt the skateboarding world has ever seen, landing on his board after free-falling 4 stories from a helicopter.
It feels amazing to be able to fly through the air without any wings, you know.
At home with his son Jebediah and fiancée Carrie, Danny Way is like any other family man. What really sets him apart is a passion for riding anything on wheels or a board. And it's been that way since he was a kid.
I've had my first skateboard since I've been a couple years old, but there's certain things you tap into sometimes and you just go, I love this.
And growing up as a skater in San Diego meant Danny was at the very center of a booming skateboarding scene, jumping over just about anything.
I've jumped over rails, walls, curbs, benches, picnic tables, houses. Basically everything that you can possibly think of that would be something for a skateboard to roll on.
Eventually, Danny and a friend created the group Plan B to push the limits of the sport and make cutting-edge skateboarding videos. But one thing Danny didn't plan on was the toll skateboarding would take on his body.
I've had 8 surgeries, both wrists, elbow, 3 on the knee, 2 on my shoulder.
Ironically, it was while taking a break from skateboarding that Danny suffered his worst injury. It was an accident that almost cost him his career and his life.
I broke my neck surfing, which took me out for about 1.5 years, and had neurological problems from bruising my brainstem and my spinal cord and all kinds of stuff like that.
Danny was determined to get back on his feet, and after only 1.5 years of intense therapy, is back. Planning the greatest skateboard feat of his career. The setting, the super ramp. A specially built incline designed for skateboarders. Unbelievably, after setting the world's big air record by launching himself 16 feet 6 inches off the lip of the 20-foot halfpipe, Danny still isn't finished. The daredevil has a surprise up his sleeve. He'll try something that's never been attempted before. Jumping out of a moving helicopter while simultaneously landing on his board and hitting the ramp nearly 40 feet below.
Next thing you know, I was standing on the edge of a helicopter looking down going, all right, here we go.
4 stories above the ground, Danny knows what he's about to attempt is extremely dangerous.
And I'm like, well, if I don't do it, I'm going to look like a chicken.
But as Danny knows from a career full of injuries, jumping's the easy part. It's landing that's tough. And with Danny's injuries, missing could be disastrous. He tries once, but fails. Physically in agony, Danny isn't about to give up. He gets back in the chopper, determined to stick the landing. Amazingly, despite the pain, Danny becomes the first and only person to ever successfully jump out of a helicopter and land on a skateboard.
I didn't really think that it was that big of a deal when I did it, and afterwards people made it such a big deal, and I sat back and I was like, actually that was kind of cool that we did that, you know?
At 26 years old, Danny competes against kids who are half his age, and they consider him a senior citizen.
Next, the rock band getting a real head rush because they play suspended upside down. Amazing stories and unbelievable people. Ripley's Believe It or Not. A Japanese band called Johnny is turning the Tokyo rock scene upside down. The five-piece rockabilly band plays their popular single Bang Bang Big Bang while suspended from metal frames by their ankles. The musicians need a lot of rehearsing to get the hang of this upside-down rocking. Although Johnny doesn't have the funds for a lot of advertising, their inverted antics have generated a die-hard fan base. Many newcomers hear about Johnny through word of mouth and come to the show just to see the dangling rockers. The bandmates, unfortunately, can only play 30 to 40 minutes before they start passing out. Believe it or not.
It's one thing to get a single tattoo, but Ripley's discovered a woman with hundreds of ink blots all over her body. She says it's part of a lifetime passion that she has for pussycats. Take a look. Becky B is a woman undergoing an incredible metamorphosis. For the last 2 years, this 22-year-old woman has been transforming herself into a cat. And believe it or not, she's about to get her 800th tattoo.
I started off with the first half of my back, and I just kept going. Choosing to modify your body is not about a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's not about you being a little bit weird. You can express yourself in so many ways, and this is another way to express yourself.
Becky is preparing to have the next series of spots applied to her body. And when it comes to creating her unique leopard look, Becky trusts only this man to do the work. Professional tattoo artist and close friend, JJ.
I think with the way that Becky's tattoos are, they're very elegant on her. She keeps everything very feminine, very pretty, and very cat-like.
But before any ink touches Becky's skin, today she and Jay have to carefully consider the natural lines of her body. With these new spots, Becky is one step closer to her total Catwoman transformation. She says it's worth it to endure the painful tattoo sessions because, in the end, they make her feel like a woman. Becky is not finished yet. She estimates that it'll take approximately 1,500 more spots to complete her cat-like coat.
Still ahead, why this innocent-looking party favor hides a violent and deadly history. The truth behind its ghastly past when we venture into the Ripley's vault. Next.
For a lot of people, ringing in the new year means partying till the stroke of midnight, then sounding off and celebrating with the help of one of these little gizmos. But the inspiration behind these party favors was no fun at all. In fact, this overgrown noisemaker was used to sound a deadly warning. You see, this is a World War I mustard gas rattle. During battle, English soldiers would sound the alarm if German troops unleashed their deadly mustard gas. As soldiers didn't get their gas masks on in time, this sound was the last sound they would ever hear. Unbelievable? Believe it.